I'm Captain Jenna Walker. I am 34 years old, 10 years in uniform, and for most of that time, I've lived with the quiet understanding that my father saw me as nothing more than a disappointment in camouflage. He is Colonel Thomas Walker, Rhett, a decorated Army infantryman. He is the kind of man who measures a soldier's worth by the mud on their boots and the volume of their war stories. To him, bravery is loud. It is charging a hill. It is physical endurance. I didn't fit that mold. I never did. My battlefield was quieter. It was comprised of fiber optic cables, encrypted frequencies, and psychological leverage. It didn't come with stories you could retell over bourbon at the VFW hall, and because of that, he never saw me. Not really. It wasn't always like this. As a kid, I thought he hung the moon. I chased his attention as if it were oxygen. I tried harder in school, ran faster on the track, and joined the military when I could have gone anywhere else. I thought wearing the same uniform might finally earn me a place in his world. But instead, I just became a cautionary tale. His own daughter, the one who played soldier from behind a desk, the one who worked in logistics and supply. To him, I was Captain Clipboard. The day of the tribunal is etched in my mind like shrapnel under the skin. It wasn't a standard disciplinary hearing. It was a general court-martial. The charges were severe: gross negligence leading to a compromise of classified intelligence. My father was called in not as a defendant, but as a character witness for the defense, a chance to speak for me, to vouch for my integrity. Instead, he stood there, hands folded behind his back, eyes scanning the panel of 5 high-ranking officers like he was briefing a war room. He didn't look at me. He looked through me. "She lacks the necessary discipline for field operations," he told the court. He said it calmly, almost like it was a fact, like reading the weather. "Jenna has always been soft," he continued. "She is organized, certainly, good with paperwork, but she lacks the grit required to protect sensitive assets in a hostile environment. It does not surprise me that she lost the device. It is a failure of character, not just procedure." I didn't flinch. I didn't look at him. I just stood there, spine straight, face neutral, heart pounding so hard it felt like a drum in my throat. I could feel the judgment in the room shift, not just because of what he said, but because of who he was. Colonel Thomas Walker, a war hero, a man whose word was iron. And I was the incompetent daughter who had allegedly left a level 1 secure tablet in an unlocked vehicle in a red zone, allowing it to fall into enemy hands. I've been called a lot of things in my career, but nothing ever hit like hearing the man who raised me validate the prosecution's case against me. He wasn't doing it to hurt me. He was doing it because he believed in the Army more than he believed in me. He believed he was protecting the institution from my incompetence. But the truth, the real truth, he never knew who I really was. Not on the battlefield, not in the halls of power, and definitely not in that tribunal room. Not yet. The tribunal room was ice cold, maintained at a sterile 68 degrees, but I felt heat crawl up my neck the second my father started speaking. He stood there like he was giving a lecture at the academy. Voice steady, posture perfect, eyes sharp and dismissive. To anyone else in the room, it sounded like honest discipline. To me, it was betrayal dressed in ceremony. The charges were specific. 2 months ago, during a routine supply transfer in Eastern Europe, a ruggedized military tablet assigned to my custody had gone missing. This tablet contained logistical routes, supply chain manifests, and, crucially, personnel rosters for undercover assets in the region. The prosecution argued that I had been careless. that I had left it unattended in a transport truck while I was busy managing paperwork. They argued that this negligence had put hundreds of lives at risk. My father agreed with them. I warned her when she commissioned, my father told the panel. I told her that wearing the uniform requires a vigilance she has never demonstrated. She treats the Army like a corporate job. She clocks in, she clocks out. She doesn't understand that a single slip-up costs lives. He turned to the lead prosecutor. You ask if I believe she is capable of this negligence. Yes, I do. She is not a warrior. She is an administrator. And administrators get complacent. The panel listened, nodding politely. None of them knew the history. They didn't know about the dinners where my brother, Luke, was always the center of attention. Luke was infantry. Luke had a Purple Heart. Luke made Dad proud without even trying. I remember one Thanksgiving. Luke had just made sergeant. Dad raised his glass and toasted to the kind of soldier who still believes in boots on the ground. Everyone clapped. I sat there in silence. I had just returned from a 6-month deployment where I hadn't seen the sun, working in a SIF, sensitive compartmented information facility, tracking cyber terrorists. Dad had looked at me and asked, "So Jenna, still ordering toilet paper for the base?" I had laughed the first time. Then I learned to smile. Then I learned to say nothing. But deep down, it carved out a hollow space, a place where resentment and shame took root. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need his approval. But sitting there in that tribunal, realizing he was willing to testify against his own blood to uphold his rigid code of grit, I realized how badly I still wanted it. As he spoke, I kept my eyes straight ahead. I didn't blink. I didn't fidget. Every instinct in me screamed to react, to defend myself, to yell that he didn't know a damn thing about that tablet, to scream that I didn't lose it. But I didn't, because I knew that was exactly what he expected me to do, to lose control, to cry, to confirm his story that I was weak. He didn't mention the missions I'd led. He didn't know about them. He didn't know that logistics was the perfect cover for asset acquisition. He didn't know that supply chain was code for terrorist financing tracking. All he saw was the uniform without the mud, the rank without the rifle. When he finally sat down, I could feel the weight of his words settle over the room like dust. In that moment, I was no longer just a captain on trial. I was a daughter who had just been disowned on the official record. But behind my silence was fire, not rage. Something colder, more focused. He thought he had finished the story, that his testimony would be the final nail in the coffin of my career. He didn't know I had my own chapter to write, because he had just buried the version of me he thought existed, and in doing so, he set the stage for the truth to rise. Let me tell you what actually happened to that tablet. It happened in Sector 4, a gray zone near the border where intelligence suggested a new cell of the Vanguard Syndicate was operating. We knew they were there, but we couldn't find them. They were ghosts. Digital specters. We needed them to come to us. The mission was classified Top Secret, Orion. I wasn't there to deliver MREs. I was there to plant the bait. The tablet wasn't left in the truck. It was placed there. And it wasn't just a standard logistical computer. It was a Trojan horse. To the naked eye, and even to basic encryption crackers, it looked like a gold mine. Supply routes, guard shifts, easy targets. But underneath that layer was a level 9 polymorphic tracker, disguised as a system error log. I remember the moment I lost it. I stood by the convoy, feigning distraction, yelling at a private about a manifest form. I watched from the corner of my eye as the syndicate spotter, A young kid on a moped. Saw the open door. Saw the tablet. He grabbed it and ran. I acted the part. I shouted. I chased him for a block, then gave up, winded. I filed the report immediately. Lost asset due to negligence. I had to sell the lie. If I didn't look incompetent, they would suspect a trap. They needed to believe they had stolen it from a stupid, lazy supply officer. My father's perception of me? That was my cover. Being underestimated was my superpower. 6 hours later, in a bunker 60 miles away, the syndicate tech officer booted up the tablet. He bypassed the basic password, which I had intentionally made weak. Password 123. He thought he had hit the jackpot. He connected the tablet to their secure server to download the data. That was the kill shot. The moment he connected, the polymorphic virus uploaded itself into their mainframe. It didn't shut them down. It didn't delete files. It turned their entire network into a broadcasting station. For 3 weeks, we sat in a dark room and watched everything. We saw their bank accounts. We saw their communication logs. We saw the blueprints for a dirty bomb they were planning to detonate in a subway station in London. We didn't just stop an attack. We dismantled the entire network. We froze their assets, identified their leaders, and neutralized the threat without firing a single bullet. My handler's voice came through the earpiece when the mission concluded. Target confirmed. Network dark. Good work, Spectre. That was my real name in that room. Not Jenna, not Captain. Spectre. The shadow behind the mission, the one who erased threats without leaving a footprint. But the Army is a machine of rules, and technically, legally, I had abandoned a classified device without filing the proper prior authorization forms with the conventional command. The operation was so black, so deep cover, that the regular Army JAG Corps didn't know it was an operation. They just saw a missing tablet and a negligent captain. So here I was, facing a court-martial for a crime that was actually a victory, and my father was helping them hang me. The prep room smelled like stale coffee and anxiety. Lieutenant Rhodes, my JAG-appointed counsel, paced in front of me, papers trembling in his hand. He was young, sharp, but completely out of his depth. "Captain, please," he pleaded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Your father's testimony was brutal. The panel is looking at a dishonorable discharge, maybe prison time." He leaned in. "They're giving you an out. If we plead guilty to simple negligence and accept a demotion, we can avoid jail. We can save your pension." I sat still, hands folded, watching him with the same calm I used when I watched the syndicate upload my virus. "I'm not pleading to anything," I said. "Captain, be reasonable," Rhodes snapped. "You lost the device. You admitted it in the report. Your own father says you're incompetent. We have no defense." "We have Protocol 19 Zeta," I said quietly. Rhodes stopped mid-step. His mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. "You're joking," he whispered. That's a myth. That's for Tier 1 operators. That's for ghosts." "I'm invoking it," I said. "If you invoke 19 Zeta and you don't have the clearance to back it up," Rhodes warned, his voice shaking, "they won't just fire you. They will bury you under the prison for perjury and stolen valor." "I know the risks, Lieutenant," I said. "Do it." He looked at me. He saw a logistics captain with a coffee stain on her file. He didn't see the Spectre. "God help you," he muttered. The tribunal room was still echoing with the tension of my father's testimony when we returned from recess. The presiding officer, Rear Admiral Bowers, looked down at me. He was a man of stone, with eyes that had seen everything. "Captain Walker," Bowers said, "your counsel has indicated you wish to make a statement before sentencing." I stood slowly. My father was watching me from the gallery, a look of pity and disappointment on his face. He thought I was going to beg for mercy. "Yes, sir," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I invoke Protocol 19 Zeta," I stated clearly. The silence that followed was instant and absolute. It hit the room like a detonation. One of the junior panel officers gasped. The stenographer stopped typing. My father frowned, confused. He leaned over to the officer next to him. "What is that? What is she saying?" Admiral Bowers didn't look confused. He looked expectant. "Protocol 19 Zeta," Bowers repeated slowly. "The disclosure of classified actions for the purpose of legal defense regarding strategic assets." He leaned forward. "Captain, this protocol requires verification from the Office of Naval Intelligence and the NSA. If you are wasting this court's time—" "I am not, Admiral," I said. "The verification code is Omicron 7 Black." Bowers froze. He typed something into his secure terminal. He waited. The screen flashed. I saw the reflection of the red light turn green in his glasses. Bowers looked up. His expression had changed entirely. The boredom was gone, replaced by a sharp, terrifying respect. "Clear the room," Bowers ordered. His voice was a whip crack. "Sir?" the prosecutor asked. "Clear the room," Bowers shouted. "All non-essential personnel out. Now! Seal the doors." Chaos. Officers scrambled to leave. The stenographer grabbed her machine. My father stood up to leave. "Not you, Colonel Walker," Bowers said. "You stay. You need to see this." My father looked terrified. He sat back down. When the doors were locked, it was just the Admiral, the panel, my lawyer, my father, and me. "Captain Walker," Bowers said, his tone completely different now, formal, deferential. "We have verified the code. The court recognizes the authority of the Spectre Initiative." My father looked at me. "Spectre? What is going on?" I turned to face him. "I didn't lose the tablet, Dad," I said. I walked over to the evidence table. I picked up the replacement tablet. "I gave it to them," I said. "It was a honeypot. A trap." My father shook his head. "No, you work in supply. You don't have the clearance for counter-intel." "I have clearance you don't even know exists," I said. I reached up to my collar. "You said I lacked grit," I said. "You said I wasn't a warrior because I didn't have mud on my boots." I undid the top button of my service dress uniform, then the second. I pulled the fabric aside to reveal the skin over my left collarbone. There was no tattoo. There was a brand. It was a scar, burned into the skin. A geometric sigil of a jagged spear crossing a digital eye. It was the mark of the Spectre unit, operators who work, alone, deep cover, without support. My father gasped. He knew what that brand meant. It was a rumor in the old infantry bars, the mark of the ghosts. The tablet contained a polymorphic virus, I explained, looking directly at my father. When the Vanguard Syndicate plugged it in, we drained their accounts. We identified their operatives. We stopped a dirty bomb from hitting London. I took a step closer to him. I had to let them steal it. I had to look incompetent. I had to look like a disappointment. My voice cracked just a little. "And you made it easy, Dad. Because you've been telling everyone I'm a disappointment for 10 years. Your testimony today? It was the perfect cover. It proved I was just a stupid girl who lost a computer." My father looked like he had been shot. Admiral Bowers spoke up. "Colonel Walker, your daughter is the primary reason the Eastern Seaboard is safe today. She orchestrated a Tier 1 counterintelligence operation that 3 other agencies failed to execute." Bowers stood up. "She doesn't lack grit, Colonel. She has enough grit to let her own father humiliate her in public just to protect the mission." The room went deadly silent. My father stared at the brand on my shoulder. His hands were shaking. "Jenna," he whispered. I didn't know." "You didn't ask," I said. "You just assumed. Because I didn't carry a rifle, you thought I wasn't fighting." I buttoned my shirt. I fixed my tie. "I fight in the dark, Dad, so people like you can sleep in the light." Admiral Bowers picked up his gavel. "All charges dismissed with extreme prejudice. This tribunal is sealed. The records are expunged." He looked at me. "Spectre, you are released. Good hunting." "Thank you, Admiral." I turned to leave. My father stood up. He looked broken. The arrogance was gone. The posture was gone. He looked like an old man who had just realized he had wasted 10 years judging a book he never bothered to open. "Jenna?" he called out. "Wait." I stopped at the door. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice broke. I was so wrong." I looked at him. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to yell at him. But I was a Spectre. We don't do drama. We do precision. "You did your duty, Colonel," I said. "You testified to what you saw. Next time, look deeper." I walked out the door. The message came 6 months later. I was in a safe house in Jakarta, monitoring a new threat. My secure terminal pinged. It was an email. From Thomas Walker. The subject line was blank. Inside was a single attachment. It was a photo. It was a picture of his old army dress uniform, hanging in the back of his closet. And next to it, framed on the wall, was a new picture. It wasn't a picture of Luke. It wasn't a picture of himself. It was a picture of me. A blurry surveillance photo from the tribunal, taken by a security camera, showing me, standing tall, invoking the protocol. Underneath the photo, he had written a caption on the frame: "The Quiet Warrior." And in the body of the email, just 3 words: "I see you." I stared at the screen. The Jakarta rain hammered against the window. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I closed the laptop. I checked my gear. The mission was starting. I wasn't Captain Clipboard anymore. I wasn't disappointed. I was Spectre. And for the first time in my life, I knew that the man back home finally knew it too. Validation is a funny thing. You spend your whole life chasing it, begging for it. But when you finally get it, you realize you didn't need it to survive. You just needed it to heal. I walked out into the rain, invisible again, just the way I liked it.